Hannah Martinez pulled into the driveway of her childhood home on Maple Street, exhaustion weighing heavy on her shoulders. The 12-hour shift at Portland General Hospital had drained every ounce of energy from her body, but she'd pushed through knowing she had her own sanctuary waiting for her upstairs. Her bedroom, the one place in this house that still felt like hers. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The front door creaked as she stepped inside, medical scrubs still clinging to her tired frame. The familiar scent of her mother's lavender candles mixed with something else, paint fumes. Hannah frowned, setting her keys on the entrance table. "Mom? Dad?" she called out, but silence greeted her. She climbed the wooden stairs, each step echoing in the quiet house. But as she reached the second-floor landing, her world tilted on its axis. Her bedroom door stood wide open, revealing a scene that made her blood run cold. Pink. Everything was pink. Where her medical textbooks once lined the shelves, now sat stuffed animals and jewelry boxes. Her desk, the one where she'd studied through nursing school, where she'd cried over failed relationships and celebrated small victories, now hosted a vanity mirror surrounded by Hollywood-style light bulbs. The walls she'd painted a calming sage green during her teenage years were now covered in bubblegum pink with silver accent stripes. "What the hell?" Hannah whispered, stepping into what used to be her room. Her bed was gone, her dresser vanished. Even the framed photo of her and her late grandmother had been replaced by some inspirational quote about following your dreams in cursive script. "Oh my God, Hannah. You're home early." Hannah spun around to find her younger sister Madison bouncing up the stairs, blonde hair perfectly curled, wearing what looked like a brand new designer outfit that probably cost more than Hannah made in a week. "Madison, what is this? Where are my things?" Madison's perfectly glossed lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Surprise! Mom and Dad said I could finally have the bigger room. Isn't it gorgeous? I hired this amazing interior designer. Well, Daddy hired her, and she just finished today. Do you love the color scheme?" Hannah's hands trembled as she gripped the doorframe. "This is my room, Madison. I've lived here for 26 years. "Oh, come on, Hannah. You're hardly ever here anymore with your crazy work schedule. And I mean, I'm starting my influencer career, and I need the space for all my content creation. You understand, right?" "Content creation?" Hannah's voice rose an octave. "Madison, I work double shifts to help Mom and Dad with the mortgage payments on this house. This is my room." Madison's expression shifted, a flash of something cold crossing her features before the sweet smile returned. "Actually, about that, Mom and Dad want to talk to you. They're in the living room." Hannah pushed past her sister, her heart hammering against her ribs. She found her parents, Robert and Linda Martinez, sitting on the cream-colored sectional sofa, looking anywhere but at her. "Mom? Dad? What's going on upstairs?" Her father cleared his throat, adjusting his reading glasses, a nervous habit she'd known since childhood. "Hannah, sweetheart, sit down. We need to talk." "I'll stand, thanks." "Someone wants to explain why my room has turned into a pink nightmare and all my belongings have vanished?" Linda Martinez wrung her hands in her lap. "Your things are in the basement, honey. We were very careful with everything." "The basement? Mom, that basement floods every spring. My medical books, my clothes, my grandmother's jewelry box." Now, Robert interrupted, his voice taking on that patronizing tone Hannah remembered from her teenage years. "Let's not get dramatic. Madison needs the room more than you do right now." "Madison needs it more?" Hannah stared at her father in disbelief. "Dad, I pay $800 a month to help with your mortgage. I work 16-hour days to keep this family afloat, while Madison spends her time taking selfies and shopping with your credit card." Madison appeared in the living room doorway, leaning against the frame with practiced casualness. "That's not fair, Hannah. I'm building a brand. Social media is a real career now, even if you don't understand it." "A real career?" Hannah laughed bitterly. "Madison, you have 300 followers." I have patients whose lives depend on me. That's enough, Robert's voice boomed through the room. Madison has big plans, and she needs the proper environment to succeed. You're never here anyway. I'm never here because I'm working 3 jobs to help support this family. Hannah's composure finally cracked. I'm at the hospital, I'm doing private nursing shifts on weekends, and I'm teaching CPR classes at the community center. When exactly am I supposed to be here? Linda spoke up, her voice small and apologetic. We know you work hard, sweetie, but Madison is at a crucial point in her life. She needs to focus on building her online presence, and that room has the best lighting in the house. The best lighting. Hannah repeated the words slowly, as if trying to process a foreign language. You gave away my room because it has good lighting for Instagram photos. It's not just Instagram, Madison protested. I'm building a multimedia platform, YouTube, TikTok, brand partnerships. With what brand, Madison? What have you actually accomplished besides spending Dad's money at the mall? Robert stood up, his face flushing red. That's enough disrespect, Hannah. Madison is trying to build something for herself, and as her family, we support her dreams. What about my dreams? What about the fact that I've been saving every penny to buy my own place, but I keep having to loan you money for mortgage payments? What about the fact that I've been living in this room since I was born? You're 26 years old, Linda said, standing to join her husband. Don't you think it's time you found your own place anyway? The words hit Hannah like a physical blow. She looked at her parents, really looked at them, and saw strangers. When did her father's eyes become so cold? When had her mother's voice developed that sharp edge of resentment? So that's it? You just decided to kick me out? Madison pushed off from the doorframe, crossing her arms. Nobody's kicking you out, Hannah. Don't be so dramatic. You can stay in the guest room. The guest room is 8 feet by 10 feet, Madison. It doesn't even have a real closet. Well, Madison shrugged. Maybe this is the universe telling you it's time to move on with your life. Hannah stared at her younger sister, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The entitlement in her posture, the calculated innocence in her expression, the way she spoke about Hannah's displacement as if it were some kind of favor. How long have you 3 been planning this? The silence that followed was answer enough. Madison mentioned she needed more space about a month ago, Robert finally admitted. We thought it made sense. A month ago. Hannah's voice was barely above a whisper. You've been planning to steal my room for a month, and nobody thought to mention it to me? We're mentioning it now, Madison said brightly, as if discussing weekend plans. Hannah looked around the living room, at the family photos on the mantel that suddenly seemed to feature Madison more prominently, at the furniture she'd helped her parents buy when she first started working, at the walls of the home where she'd grown up but apparently was no longer welcome. I need some air, she said, turning toward the door. Hannah, wait, Linda called after her. Let's talk about this reasonably. But Hannah was already walking away, her footsteps echoing in the hallway. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking up toward what used to be her sanctuary. The pink glow spilling from the doorway made her stomach turn. She grabbed her keys from the entrance table and walked out the front door, leaving it open behind her. The cool evening air hit her face as she sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. 26 years. 26 years of birthdays in that room, of homework at that desk, of crying into that pillow during heartbreaks, of celebrating achievements within those 4 walls. 26 years of calling that space her own, only to have it stripped away while she was saving lives at the hospital. Her phone buzzed with a text from Madison. BTW, I'm having a housewarming party for my new room tomorrow night. You should totally come. 2 hearts. Hannah stared at the message, something cold and calculating settling in her chest. Her family thought they could just erase her from this house, treat her like an unwelcome guest in her own home, also Madison could have better lighting for her non-existent influencer career. They had no idea what they'd just done. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. More importantly, they had no idea who they'd just crossed. Hannah Martinez had been underestimated her entire life. The the responsible one, the peacekeeper, the one who always put family first. But as she sat in that driveway, looking at the house she'd helped keep afloat financially, a plan began forming in her mind. Her family wanted to play games with rooms and ownership. She was about to teach them a lesson about both. Hannah drove aimlessly through Portland's quiet streets, her mind racing faster than her Honda Civic's engine. The familiar neighborhoods blurred past her windows as she tried to process what had just happened. 20 minutes later, she found herself parked outside Riverside Coffee, the 24-hour diner where she'd spent countless late nights studying during nursing school. The bell chimed as she entered, and Margaret Chen, the night shift manager, looked up from behind the counter with a warm smile. "Hannah, working late again, honey?" "Something like that." Hannah slumped into her usual corner booth, the red vinyl squeaking under her weight. "Could I get the strongest coffee you have, Margaret? And maybe some of those files you keep in the back office?" Margaret raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. She'd known Hannah for 6 years, had watched her transform from a stressed nursing student into a competent healthcare professional. If Hannah needed files, there was probably a good reason. "The property records you were looking at last month? Still working on that research project?" Hannah had almost forgotten about her casual inquiry into property ownership in her neighborhood. It had started as innocent curiosity after helping her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, with some legal documents. But now, yeah, something like that. 20 minutes later, Hannah sat surrounded by printouts, her coffee growing cold as she stared at documents that made her blood pressure spike. The King County property records told a story that her parents had conveniently omitted. 1247 Maple Street. Current owner, Hannah Isabel Martinez. Her hands trembled as she read the deed transfer date, March 15, 2019, 5 years ago, the same month her grandmother had passed away. Hannah's phone buzzed with another text from Madison. "Also, can you move your ugly car? It's blocking the good angle for my morning selfies camera with flash." She set the phone aside and pulled out more documents. There it was. Her grandmother's will, clearly stating that the house was to be transferred to "my beloved granddaughter Hannah Martinez, who has shown the responsibility and dedication to maintain this family home." But there were other papers too. Mortgage documents showing her parents had refinanced the house multiple times, each time taking out larger amounts. Credit card statements mixed in with the property files showed massive debts. Madison's shopping sprees, her father's gambling losses at the nearby casino, her mother's expensive spa treatments and wine collection. "Holy shit," Hannah whispered, then glanced around to make sure Margaret hadn't heard her. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed, "Dad." "Hannah, where are you? You stormed out without finishing our conversation." "I'm having coffee, Dad, doing some reading." "Look, I know this is an adjustment, but you need to understand. Madison has real potential. Her social media consultant says she could be making 6 figures within a year." Hannah almost laughed. "Social media consultant? Dad, how much are you paying this person?" "That's not the point. The point is, we're investing in Madison's future. She needs the space to create content, to build her brand." "Dad, stop." Hannah's voice cut through his rambling. "I have a question for you. Do you remember Grandma Elena's will?" The silence on the other end stretched for several heartbeats. "What does that have to do with anything?" "It has everything to do with everything. Do you remember what she left me?" "Hannah, your grandmother loved all of us." "Answer the question, Dad." Another pause. "She left you some jewelry, I think. Maybe some money." Hannah looked down at the deed in front of her, her grandmother's signature still visible in faded blue ink. "She left me the house, Dad." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I am the legal owner of 1247 Maple Street. I'm talking about the fact that for 5 years, you and Mom have been collecting rent money from me for a house that I already own." The silence this time lasted so long that Hannah wondered if the call had dropped. "Dad? That's impossible. We would have known." "Would you? Because I'm looking at the deed right now. King County records. Hannah Isabel Martinez, sole owner. Transferred March 15, 2019. She heard muffled voices in the background, her father talking to someone, probably her mother. "Hannah, there must be some mistake. We've been making mortgage payments." On a house that isn't yours. Dad, what did you do with Grandma's will? The real one? I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, I'm stating facts. Where is the will, Dad? More muffled conversation, then her mother's voice came on the line. Hannah, sweetheart, you're confused. Your grandmother left the house to all of us, to keep it in the family. Mom, stop lying to me. I have the property records right here. I own that house, which means I've been paying rent to live in my own home while you've been refinancing my property to pay for Madison's shopping sprees and Dad's casino debts. Linda's sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. How did you? We never told you about. About what, Mom? About the refinancing? About the credit card debt? About the fact that you've been using my house as collateral for your financial disasters? Hannah could hear Madison's voice in the background. What's she talking about? What does she mean by her house? Madison doesn't know, does she? Hannah continued. She has no idea that she just moved into a room in a house that belongs to me. Hannah, please, let us explain. Oh, I think I understand perfectly. You kept me in the dark about inheriting the house so you could continue controlling me. You let me believe I was living here out of your generosity while you were actually living in my house out of mine. She hung up and immediately called her friend Jessica, who worked as a paralegal at Morrison & Associates. Jess, it's Hannah. I need a huge favor, and I need it tonight. Hannah? It's almost midnight. Are you okay? I'm about to be. I need you to pull some legal documents for me. Property records, will verification, mortgage fraud information, basically everything you can find on 1247 Maple Street. Mortgage fraud? Hannah, what's going on? Hannah looked around the empty diner, at Margaret wiping down tables and preparing for the morning rush, at the city lights twinkling through the window. Everything looked the same as it had a few hours ago, but her entire world had shifted. My family has been stealing from me for 5 years, and I just found out about it tonight. 2 hours later, Jessica arrived at the diner with a manila folder thick with documents and a grim expression. Hannah, this is bad, really bad. How bad? Jessica slid into the booth across from her. Your parents have remortgaged your house 4 times in 5 years. They've taken out over $200,000 in equity loans against a property they don't own. That's felony mortgage fraud. Hannah's stomach dropped. 200,000? And that's not counting the credit cards they've opened using the house as collateral. Hannah, they're in debt up to their eyeballs, and they've been using your inheritance to fund it. What happens now? Well, legally, you have several options. You could demand they pay back everything they've stolen, you could have them arrested for fraud, or… Jessica paused, looking uncomfortable. Or what? Or you could evict them? It's your house, Hannah. You have every right to kick them out. Hannah stared at the documents spread across the table. Bank statements showing her parents' gambling debts. Credit card bills for Madison's designer clothes and expensive beauty treatments. Mortgage papers signed with forged signatures. Her phone buzzed with a new message from Madison. Just posted my room tour video. Check out my new space. #blessed, #new beginnings, #dream room. Hannah clicked on the Instagram story, watching her sister twirl around in what used to be her bedroom, gushing about her amazing parents who totally understand her creative vision. The video had already gotten 50 likes and comments like, "Your parents are so supportive," and goals, "I wish my family believed in my dreams like this." Hannah screenshotted the video, then opened her text messages. Thanks for the room tour, Madison, very informative. By the way, we need to have a family meeting tomorrow, all of us. There are some things we need to discuss about the house. She sent the message, then looked up at Jessica. How long does an eviction notice have to be? In Oregon? For family members living rent-free, you can give them as little as 30 days. Hannah smiled for the first time all evening. 30 days. I like the sound of that. Hannah returned to the house at exactly 7 a.m., armed with a briefcase full of legal documents and a resolve that felt unshakable. She found her family gathered in the kitchen, whispering in hushed tones that stopped the moment she walked through the door. Madison sat at the breakfast bar in a silk robe, her phone propped up as she filmed herself eating what looked like a very expensive acai bowl. Good morning, beautiful souls. Madison here with my morning routine in my gorgeous new creative space. Turn off the camera, Madison. Madison looked up, annoyed. Hannah, I'm in the middle of content creation. Can this wait? No, it can't. Hannah set her briefcase on the kitchen counter with a heavy thud. Family meeting, now! Robert Martinez stood by the coffee maker, his hair disheveled and his face pale. Hannah, about last night's phone call. We'll get to that. Hannah pulled out a chair at the kitchen table and sat down, gesturing for the others to join her. Everyone sit, we have a lot to discuss. Linda emerged from the pantry, holding a box of Madison's favorite organic cereal. $12 a box, Hannah noted. Her mother's hands shook slightly as she set it on the counter. Hannah, sweetheart, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is that I've been too trusting for the past 5 years. Hannah opened her briefcase and began laying out documents. Madison, I said turn off the camera. But my followers are expecting morning content. Your followers can wait. Hannah's voice carried an authority that made Madison's finger hover over the stop button. Fine, whatever. Madison ended her live stream with visible irritation. But this better be important. Oh, it's important. Hannah spread the deed across the table like she was dealing cards. Let's start with this. Dad, do you recognize this document? Robert adjusted his glasses and leaned forward, his face growing paler as he read. This looks like a property deed. Specifically, the deed to this house. Notice the name in the quote field. Madison leaned over to look. Hannah Isabel Martinez, she read aloud, then looked up confused. I don't get it. Why does it have your name on it? Because I own this house, Madison. I have for 5 years. The silence that followed was broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. That's impossible, Madison said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. Hannah pulled out more documents. Here's Grandma Elena's will. The real one, not whatever version you showed me 5 years ago. And here are the property transfer records from King County. And here, she slapped down a thick folder, are copies of every mortgage document, every refinancing agreement, and every equity loan that has been taken out against my property. Linda sank into a chair, her face ashen. How did you get all of this? Public records, Mom. Amazing what you can find when you actually look. Hannah turned to Madison, who was staring at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Madison, did you know that Mom and Dad have borrowed over $200,000 against this house in the past 5 years? What does that mean? It means they've been using my house, the house I inherited from Grandma, as their personal ATM machine. Hannah pulled out a credit card statement. This is from last month. $3,400 at Nordstrom, $800 at Sephora, $1,200 at that boutique downtown, all charged to a credit card that uses this house as collateral. Madison's eyes widened as she recognized her shopping sprees itemized in black and white. But Dad said we could afford it. He said his business was doing well. What business? Hannah turned to her father. Dad, what business has been doing so well that you could afford to give Madison a $2,000 weekly allowance? Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The consulting work, he finally stammered. I've been doing financial consulting. With what clients? Hannah pulled out another document. Because according to your tax returns, which I also obtained, you've reported 0 income from consulting work. In fact, your only reported income for the past 3 years has been unemployment benefits and disability payments. Disability payments. Madison turned to stare at her father. Dad, you're not disabled. It's complicated, sweetheart. No, it's fraud. Hannah's voice cut through his excuses. Disability fraud, mortgage fraud, and identity theft. Because guess whose signature is on these mortgage documents? She pointed to several papers. Mine. Forged, but mine. Linda began crying quietly into her hands. I don't understand, Madison said, her voice small. If Hannah owns the house, then why have we been living here? Because, Hannah said, her anger finally beginning to show, I didn't know I owned it. For 5 years, I've been paying $800 a month in rent to live in my own house. while you three have been refinancing it to fund your lifestyles. Madison looked around the kitchen, at the expensive espresso machine, the designer bar stools, the smart appliances, as if seeing them for the first time. So all of this, paid for with money stolen from me. Hannah pulled out her phone and showed Madison her Instagram story from the night before, including your dream room renovation. Do you know how much that interior designer cost? $8,000. $8,000 of my money spent on a room in my house that you took from me. Madison's perfectly made-up face crumpled. I didn't know, Hannah. I swear I didn't know. But you didn't ask either, did you? You just assumed you deserved it. Robert finally found his voice. Hannah, we can explain everything. We never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go, Dad? How long were you planning to steal from me? We weren't stealing. We're family. What's yours is ours. No, Hannah's voice was ice cold. What's mine is mine. And what you've done is called theft. In some cases, it's called felony fraud. She pulled out one final document, a thick legal paper with official seals and signatures. This is a 30-day notice to quit. It's an eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate my property. The kitchen erupted in protests. You can't be serious, Linda cried. Hannah, this is our home, Robert pleaded. Where are we supposed to go? Madison wailed. I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. Hannah stood up, gathering her documents. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me for 5 years. But we're family, Madison jumped up from her chair. You can't just throw us out on the street. Family? Hannah laughed bitterly. Families don't steal from each other. The family doesn't lie and manipulate and forge signatures. The family doesn't kick their daughter out of her own room in her own house. We didn't know it was your house, Madison protested. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. Hannah looked at each of them in turn. Madison, you've spent the last 5 years treating me like your personal ATM. Mom, you've guilt-tripped me into giving you money while you were secretly spending my inheritance. And Dad, you've committed multiple felonies using my identity. What do you want from us? Robert asked desperately. I want you out. I want every penny you've stolen from me paid back. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences. Hannah walked to the kitchen window and looked out at the backyard where she'd played as a child, where her grandmother had taught her to garden, where she'd dreamed of someday raising her own family. I also want you to know that I've already been in contact with a lawyer, Jessica Morrison from Morrison & Associates. She specializes in financial fraud cases. Linda's head snapped up. You're pressing charges? I'm considering it. Jessica says I have grounds for criminal charges, civil suits, and punitive damages. The total amount you've stolen, with interest and penalties, comes to about $340,000. Madison gasped. $300,000? Plus legal fees, plus damages for emotional distress, plus the cost of 5 years of fraudulent rent payments. Hannah turned back to face them. Or, you can be out in 30 days, and we can try to work out a payment plan for the rest. 30 days isn't enough time to find a place, Linda said through her tears. It's more time than you gave me last night. I came home to find my entire life packed away in the basement. That's different. No, Mom. It's exactly the same. Except, I actually have the legal right to kick you out. Hannah picked up her briefcase and headed for the door. Where are you going? Madison called after her. To work. Some of us have actual jobs. Hannah paused at the kitchen doorway. Oh, and Madison? You might want to start looking for a real job, too. Because your influencer career just lost its funding. As she walked out the door, Hannah could hear Madison asking, what does she mean, lost its funding? And Linda's broken response. She means we're broke, sweetheart. We're completely broke. Hannah's phone began buzzing before she even reached the hospital parking lot. Text after text flooded her screen, but she ignored them all. She had a double shift ahead of her, and sick patients didn't care about family drama. It wasn't until her lunch break that she finally checked her messages. 43 texts, 12 missed calls, and 17 voicemails, all from her family. Madison, Hannah, please, we need to talk. Madison, I found an apartment, but they want first month, last month, and security deposit. Madison, that's like $4,500. I don't have that kind of money. Mom, your sister is having a panic attack. She's never had to look for her own place before. Dad, we need to discuss payment arrangements. This is happening too fast. Madison, also, my Instagram followers are asking why I'm not posting from my dream room anymore. Madison, what am I supposed to tell them? Hannah deleted the messages without responding and returned to work. But when she arrived home that evening, she found her family had taken a different approach. The living room looked like a real estate office had exploded. Rental listings covered every surface, laptop computers were open on multiple websites, and Madison sat in the center of it all, looking like she'd been crying for hours. Hannah! Linda jumped up from the couch. Thank God you're home. We've been working all day on finding solutions. Solutions? Hannah set down her work bag and surveyed the chaos. We found apartments, Madison announced, holding up a printed listing. Look, this one's only $2,800 a month, and it has great natural lighting for content creation. Hannah took the paper and nearly choked. Madison, this is a luxury high-rise downtown. The application fee alone is $500. I know it's expensive, but my brand requires a certain aesthetic. Your brand? Hannah stared at her sister in disbelief. Madison, you have 347 Instagram followers. That's not a brand, that's a hobby. It's 352 now, Madison protested weakly. Robert cleared his throat. Hannah, we've been thinking. Maybe we can work out a different arrangement. What if we paid you rent to stay here? Real rent, market rate. With what money, Dad? You're $340,000 in debt. I could get a job, he said, though he didn't sound convinced. There are opportunities out there for someone with my experience. What experience? You haven't worked a legitimate job in 8 years. Linda held up another rental listing. What about this one? It's a 3-bedroom townhouse for $3,200 a month. Hannah looked at the address. Mom, that's in Beaverton. That's an hour commute to anywhere you'd need to go, assuming you had jobs to commute to. We could make it work, Linda insisted. How? None of you have jobs. None of you have savings. You can't even pass a credit check. Madison burst into fresh tears. This is so unfair. I didn't ask to be born into this family drama. You didn't ask, but you sure enjoyed the benefits, Hannah replied coldly. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed Jessica Morrison. I need to take this. Hannah stepped into the kitchen. Hey, Jess. Hannah, we have a problem. I just got off the phone with the mortgage company. What kind of problem? The kind where your parents took out another equity loan yesterday. $50,000. Hannah's blood ran cold. Yesterday? After I confronted them? Apparently your father called them first thing this morning, using your forged signature again. The money was deposited into their account 6 hours ago. Hannah looked through the kitchen doorway at her family, still surrounded by rental listings they couldn't afford. Jess, they stole another $50,000 from me in one day. Gets worse. I checked their banking activity. $15,000 went to something called Platinum Social Media Solutions. What the hell is Platinum Social Media Solutions? Madison's social media consultant, apparently. The one who promised she'd be making 6 figures within a year. Hannah closed her eyes and counted to 10. When she opened them, Madison was standing in the doorway, looking guilty. Hannah, is everything okay? Madison, what did you spend $15,000 on today? Madison's face went pale. How did you know about that? Answer the question. It wasn't $15,000. It was just a small investment in my future. What did you buy, Madison? A comprehensive social media package, professional photography, content planning, sponsored post opportunities, follower growth strategies. You spent $15,000 of my money on Instagram consultants? It wasn't your money. Dad said he got a bonus from work. Dad doesn't have work, Hannah exploded. He took out another loan against my house. He forged my signature again and stole $50,000 more. Robert appeared behind Madison, his face defensive. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. Hannah pushed past both of them and returned to the living room, Jessica still on the phone. Mom, what did you spend the other $35,000 on? Linda looked like a deer in headlights. I don't know what you're talking about. Jessica, tell me about their bank transactions today. Jessica's voice came through the phone speaker. $15,000 to Platinum Social Media Solutions, $8,000 to European Day Spa, $12,000 to Nordstrom, $6,000 to some place called High Roller Casino, and $9,000 cash withdrawal. $9,000 in cash? Hannah stared at her parents. What did you need $9,000 cash for? Silence. Answer me. We hired a lawyer, Robert finally admitted. You hired a lawyer? To do what? To fight the eviction, Linda whispered, and to contest Grandma Elena's will. Hannah felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. You're trying to steal my house legally now? It's not stealing, Robert said desperately. We have rights too. We've been living here for 30 years. Living in my house that I inherited, that you've been systematically destroying with your fraud. Madison sat down heavily on the couch. Wait, so the $15,000 I spent today? That was actually Hannah's money? All of it was Hannah's money, Jessica's voice came through the phone. Every penny they've spent for 5 years has been Hannah's money. But the social media consultant said this would make me an influencer within 6 months. She said I could be making $50,000 a month. Madison, Hannah said quietly, you got scammed. That consultant took your money, my money, and disappeared. I guarantee you'll never hear from them again. Madison's face crumpled as the reality hit her. So I'm not going to be an influencer? With 352 followers? No, Madison, you're not going to be an influencer. Hannah looked around the room at her family, at the rental listings they couldn't qualify for, at the dreams built on stolen money, at the faces of people who had betrayed her trust so completely. Jessica, I want you to file criminal charges. All of them. Mortgage fraud, identity theft, elder abuse for what they did with Grandma's will, disability fraud, everything. Hannah, no, Linda cried. We're your family. You stopped being my family the moment you decided to steal from me. Hannah picked up her keys. You have 29 days left. I suggest you use them wisely. Where are you going? Madison called after her. To a hotel. I'm not spending another night under the same roof as thieves. As Hannah reached the door, Robert called out desperately, Hannah, please! We can fix this. We can pay you back. She turned back one last time. With what money, Dad? You just spent $50,000 in one day on spa treatments, shopping, gambling, and fake social media consultants. You clearly have no intention of changing. But where will we go? Madison wailed. We don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought of that before you spent my inheritance on your fantasy life. Hannah walked out, leaving her family surrounded by rental listings they couldn't afford and dreams that had been built on lies. Behind her, she could hear Madison crying, but what am I going to tell my followers? And her mother's broken response, tell them the truth, sweetheart. Tell them it's all been fake. 2 weeks into the eviction countdown, Hannah's hotel room had become her war room. Legal documents covered the desk, her laptop displayed multiple email threads with Jessica Morrison, and her phone buzzed constantly with updates from the various agencies now investigating her family. The knock on her door came at exactly 8 p.m., just as she was reviewing the latest bank statements Jessica had obtained through their lawyer's subpoena powers. Room service, called a familiar voice. Hannah opened the door to find her colleague and friend Marcus Williams holding 2 containers of Thai food and wearing a concerned expression. You missed our dinner plans again, he said, pushing past her into the room. 3rd time this week. Sorry, I've been, Hannah gestured at the paper chaos around her. Obsessing over your family's crimes, I know. Marcus set the food on the small table by the window. Hannah, you need to eat. And you need to talk to someone who isn't a lawyer. As they ate, Hannah filled Marcus in on the latest developments. The FBI had opened an investigation into the mortgage fraud. The IRS was auditing her parents' tax returns, going back 7 years. And Madison's social media consultant had turned out to be part of a larger scam operation that had defrauded dozens of aspiring influencers. That's insane, Marcus said, shaking his head. But what I don't understand is why you're torturing yourself by staying so involved. File the charges, let the lawyers handle it, and move on with your life. It's not that simple. Why not? Hannah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hannah, this is your Aunt Caroline. We need to talk. Meet me at Pioneer Courthouse Square tomorrow at noon. Because, Hannah said, showing Marcus the message, apparently this story is just getting started. The next day, Hannah found herself face to face with her father's sister, a woman she hadn't seen since her grandmother's funeral. Caroline Martinez Stevens looked like an older, more severe version of her father, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. You look tired, Caroline said without preamble. I've had better weeks. They sat on a bench in the bustling square, watching tourists and office workers hurry past. I heard about the eviction notice, Caroline said. And the criminal charges. News travels fast. Your father called me, crying like a baby, said you were destroying the family over money. Hannah's jaw tightened. He would say that. He also said some interesting things about your grandmother's will. Caroline pulled out a manila envelope from her purse. Things that didn't match what I remembered from Elena's funeral. What do you mean? I mean, I was there when your grandmother had her will drafted. I was her witness. Caroline opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. And this is what she actually wanted. Hannah took the papers and began reading. Her grandmother's will was more detailed than she'd realized. Not only had Elena left the house to Hannah, but she'd also left specific instructions about the rest of her estate, including a trust fund worth $180,000 that was supposed to support Hannah's education and career development. There's more, Caroline continued. Elena left detailed letters explaining her decisions. She was worried about your parents' financial habits. She specifically wrote that the house and money should only go to you because she trusted you to be responsible with it. Where has this been for 5 years? Your parents told me they'd given you everything. They said you decided to let them handle the estate details since you were so busy with nursing school. Carolyn's voice hardened. Turns out they forged documents stating that you'd waived your rights to everything except the house. Hannah felt sick. They stole $180,000 on top of everything else? It gets worse. The trust fund was supposed to grow over time. With interest and proper investment, it should be worth close to $250,000 now. Hannah stared at the documents, calculating in her head. Between the trust fund, the fraudulent loans, the forged rent payments, and 5 years of theft, her family had stolen nearly $500,000 from her. There's something else you need to know, Caroline said quietly. Your parents aren't just in debt. They're involved with some very dangerous people. What do you mean? The gambling debts. Robert owes money to people who don't accept "I can't pay" as an answer. Caroline looked around nervously. Hannah, they've been using your house as collateral for more than just bank loans. Before Hannah could respond, her phone rang. It was Jessica. Hannah, we have a serious problem. 2 men just showed up at your house looking for your parents. They had documents claiming they have a lien on the property. What kind of line? The kind that comes from loan sharks, not banks. Hannah's blood ran cold. How much do they owe? According to the paperwork they showed me, $85,000. Plus interest, plus penalties for late payments. Caroline grabbed Hannah's arm. Hannah, you need to understand something. These people don't care that the house is legally yours. They only care that your father used it as collateral. But that's not legal. Legal doesn't matter to these people. They'll take the house first and sort out the legalities later. Hannah's phone buzzed with a text from her father. Hannah, please come home. We need your help. It's an emergency. Then another from Madison. There are scary men at the house asking about money. I'm hiding in my room. And finally, from her mother, please, Hannah, we're in real danger. I have to go, Hannah said, standing up. No, you don't. Caroline grabbed her wrist. Hannah, you don't owe them anything. They created this mess. But if something happens to them, then they'll face the consequences of their choices. You can't save people who refuse to be saved. Hannah looked at her phone, watching more desperate messages pile up. Her family had stolen from her, lied to her, betrayed her trust, and put her property at risk. But despite everything, the thought of them being hurt made her stomach turn. What would Grandma Elena want me to do? She asked quietly. Caroline was silent for a long moment. Elena loved your parents, but she was also a practical woman. She left everything to you because she knew they would waste it. She trusted you to make the right decisions. And what's the right decision here? The right decision is to protect yourself and let them face the consequences of their actions. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Hannah's phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Ms. Martinez, this is Detective Sarah Chen with Portland Police. We've had reports of a disturbance at your property on Maple Street. Are you available to meet us there? Hannah looked at Caroline, who shook her head firmly. Detective Chen, that property is currently under eviction proceedings. The residents are not supposed to be conducting any business there without my permission. Understood. We'll need you to come down and clarify the ownership situation. There are some individuals here claiming they have legal rights to the property. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As Hannah hung up, Caroline handed her one more document. What's this? Elena's final letter to you. She wrote it the week before she died. Caroline's eyes were sad. She knew this day would come, Hannah. She knew your parents would eventually push you too far. Hannah opened the letter, written in her grandmother's careful handwriting. My dearest Hannah, if you're reading this, it means my fears about your parents have come true. I pray I'm wrong, but I've watched them make poor choices for years, and I worry they will try to take advantage of your generous heart. Remember that kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It's enabling. You cannot save people who refuse to save themselves. The house and money I'm leaving you are not just gifts. They're tools to build the life you deserve. Don't let anyone, even family, steal your future. You have always been the strongest of us all. Trust your strength. With all my love, Grandma Elena. Hannah folded the letter carefully and put it in her purse. What are you going to do? Caroline asked. Hannah looked toward Maple Street, where police cars were probably parked outside her childhood home, where her family was facing the consequences of years of lies and theft. I'm going to do what Grandma Elena would have done, she said. I'm going to make the hard choice. Hannah arrived at Maple Street to find her childhood neighborhood transformed into a crime scene. 3 police cars lined the curb, their red and blue lights reflecting off the windows of curious neighbors who had gathered on their porches to watch the drama unfold. Detective Sarah Chen, a petite woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, met Hannah at the front gate. Ms. Martinez, I'm Detective Chen. We spoke on the phone. What's the situation? We have your parents and sister inside, along with 2 individuals who claim they have legal documentation showing they own your property. There's also been some damage to the interior. Hannah's heart sank. What kind of damage? See for yourself. The front door, which Hannah remembered her father painting bright blue just last summer, now hung crooked on its hinges. Inside, the living room looked like a tornado had swept through it. Furniture was overturned. Family photos lay shattered on the floor, and there were fist-sized holes in the drywall. Her family huddled together on the couch like frightened animals. Madison's designer clothes were torn and dirty, her perfect makeup smeared with tears. Linda clutched a bloody tissue to her nose, while Robert sported what looked like the beginning of a black eye. Standing near the fireplace were 2 men who radiated menace despite their expensive suits. The older one, tall and silver-haired, examined his fingernails with casual indifference. The younger one, built like a linebacker, kept his arms crossed and his eyes on Hannah's family. You must be Hannah, the older man said, extending his hand with a smile that never reached his eyes. Vincent Torino, we've been waiting to meet you. Hannah ignored the outstretched hand. Detective Chen, who are these people? They claim to be legitimate creditors, Detective Chen replied carefully. They have documentation showing your father signed agreements using this property as collateral. Vincent Torino pulled out a leather portfolio. Your father borrowed $85,000 from our financial services company. When he defaulted on payments, we were forced to take possession of the collateral he offered. This house isn't his to offer as collateral. According to our paperwork, Robert Martinez is the homeowner. Hannah turned to Jessica Morrison, who had arrived with her own briefcase full of legal documents. Jess? The papers Mr. Torino has are fraudulent, Jessica announced. Robert Martinez forged property ownership documents to secure this loan. He's committed multiple felonies. Vincent's smile grew colder. That's between him and the courts. Our contract is with the homeowner. and we have documentation proving Mr. Martinez's ownership." "Documentation that's fake," Hannah said firmly. "I am the legal owner of this property, and I have the real deed to prove it." The younger man, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "Lady, we don't care about your legal paperwork, we care about our money." Detective Chen moved between them. "Mr. Torino, if the collateral documentation is fraudulent, then your claim to this property is invalid." "Perhaps," Vincent said smoothly. "But Mr. Martinez still owes us $85,000, plus interest, plus penalties for involving law enforcement. That brings the total to $120,000. Hannah looked at her father, who couldn't meet her eyes. "Dad, you borrowed money from loan sharks?" "It wasn't supposed to be like this," Robert whispered. "They said it was a legitimate business loan." "Nobody lends $85,000 without proper documentation unless they're criminals, Dad." Vincent Torino's laugh was like ice cracking. "Ms. Martinez, I run a completely legal financial services company. We specialize in high-risk loans for clients with poor credit histories." "At what interest rate?" Jessica demanded. 35% annually, compounded monthly." Hannah did the math in her head. "That's illegal usury in Oregon." "Only if you can prove it in court. And courts take time. Money, however, needs to be collected now." Detective Chen stepped forward. "Mr. Torino, I'm going to need you and your associate to leave this property immediately. The ownership is in dispute, and you have no legal right to be here." "Of course, Detective. We're law-abiding citizens," Vincent straightened his tie. "But Mr. Martinez knows how to reach us when he's ready to settle his debt." The two men left, but not before Vincent handed Hannah a business card. "Miss Martinez, when you realize your family can't pay what they owe, call me. We can work out an arrangement." After they were gone, Detective Chen turned to Hannah's parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, you're under arrest for mortgage fraud, identity theft, and filing false documents." "Wait," Hannah said quickly. "Detective, can I have a moment with my family first?" Detective Chen checked her watch. 5 minutes. Hannah looked at her family, really looked at them. Madison's Instagram perfect facade had crumbled completely. Her parents looked older than she remembered, worn down by years of living beyond their means and the weight of their lies. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why did you take money from people like that?" Robert finally looked up. "The banks wouldn't lend us anymore. We were behind on everything. Credit cards, car payments, the mortgage payments we thought we were making to you. Madison needed money for her social media career. Your mother wanted to start her catering business." "Mom wanted to start a catering business?" Linda nodded miserably. "I enrolled in culinary school last year. It cost $25,000. "With what money?" We thought if we could just get ahead for a few months, everything would work out. Madison would start making money from her social media. I would launch my catering company. Your father would find steady work." "All of that is built on fantasies," Hannah said. "Madison isn't going to become a famous influencer. Mom, you can't start a business with stolen money. And Dad, you haven't held a real job in 8 years. Madison looked up through her tears. "Hannah, I know I messed up. I know I was selfish and spoiled and stupid, but I never meant for it to go this far." "But you never questioned where the money was coming from either." I thought Dad was successful. He always said he was doing well with his consulting work." Hannah turned to her parents. "You convinced your own daughter that you were successful while you were committing crimes to fund her lifestyle." "We wanted to give her opportunities," Linda said desperately. "We wanted her to chase her dreams." "You wanted to live vicariously through her Instagram fantasy while destroying my future to pay for it." Detective Chen returned. "Time's up." As the detective prepared to arrest her parents, Madison grabbed Hannah's arm. "Please don't let them take Mom and Dad to jail. We'll pay you back, I swear." "With what money, Madison? You have no job, no savings, no skills, and no plan." "I'll get a job. I'll work at McDonald's if I have to." "You've never worked a day in your life. You don't even know how to apply for a job." Madison's face crumpled. "Then what am I supposed to do?" Hannah looked at her sister, really looked at her, and saw not the spoiled princess who had taken her room, but a 22-year-old woman who had been raised to believe she was entitled to success without effort. You're supposed to grow up, Madison. You're supposed to face reality and start building a real life instead of a social media fantasy. As Detective Chen led their parents away in handcuffs, Madison sank onto the damaged couch, surrounded by the wreckage of their family's lies. Hannah, I don't know how to live without someone taking care of me. Then you better learn fast. Hannah looked around the living room one more time, at the holes in the walls, the broken furniture, the shattered picture frames. This house had been her sanctuary once, but her family had turned it into a crime scene. Jessica touched her arm gently. Hannah, the loan sharks will be back. Even with your parents in jail, they'll still want their money. How long do I have? Vincent Torino runs a legitimate front business, but everyone knows what he really is. He'll give you maybe a week before things get ugly. Hannah pulled out her phone and made a call. Aunt Caroline? It's Hannah. I need your help with something. How quickly can you get a house ready to sell? Depending on the condition, maybe 2 weeks. Why? Hannah looked at Madison, still crying on the couch in her torn designer clothes, and made the hardest decision of her life. Because I'm done being responsible for other people's mistakes. 6 months later, Hannah stood in the doorway of her new downtown condo, watching the movers carry in the last of her furniture. The space was smaller than the house on Maple Street, but it was entirely hers, bought with clean money, decorated with her own choices, free from the ghosts of family betrayal. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Morrison. Final settlement check cleared. Vincent Torino and his associates have been arrested by the FBI. Your parents' trial starts next month. Hannah set the phone aside without responding. The legal battles were finally over, but the emotional healing was still ongoing. The house had sold faster than anyone expected. Aunt Caroline had worked miracles, coordinating repairs, staging, and marketing, while Hannah focused on rebuilding her life. The sale price, after paying off all the fraudulent loans and legal fees, had left Hannah with enough money to buy her condo outright and start the trust fund her grandmother had originally intended. Pain of ease. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Madison standing in the hallway, looking dramatically different from the Instagram princess of 6 months ago. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, she wore scrubs from the community college nursing program, and she carried textbooks instead of designer handbags. Hi, Madison said quietly. I brought your mail from the old address. It's still being forwarded there sometimes. Hannah accepted the stack of letters but didn't invite Madison in. Their relationship remained complicated. Forgiveness was a process, not an event. How's school? Hannah asked. Hard. Really hard. Madison managed a small smile. Turns out actual studying is nothing like creating content about studying. Are you keeping up? Barely, but I'm passing. My clinical instructor says I have good instincts with patients, which is weird because I always thought I was terrible with people. You weren't terrible with people. You just never had to think about anyone except yourself. Madison winced, but nodded. Fair point. Hannah, I know I don't deserve to ask, but could I see your new place? I promise I'm not here to ask for money or favors. I miss talking to you. Hannah hesitated, then stepped aside. Madison walked into the condo with obvious appreciation, running her fingers along the clean lines of Hannah's carefully chosen furniture. This is beautiful. It's so you. What do you mean? It's practical but warm, simple but elegant. It's like the opposite of that pink nightmare I turned your old room into. They sat on Hannah's new couch, a comfortable sectional in soft gray that she'd bought because she loved it, not because it would photograph well for social media. Madison, why are you really here? Madison pulled out her phone and showed Hannah a screenshot. I got my first paycheck from the hospital. $847 for 2 weeks of work as a nursing assistant. That's good, right? It's more money than I ever earned from social media. Madison's voice was thoughtful. And I actually earned it. Like, really earned it. I helped people, Hannah. Real people with real problems. Hannah studied her sister's face. The entitled princess was gone, replaced by someone who looked tired but genuinely content. I wanted to thank you, Madison continued, for not bailing me out, for letting me figure it out on my own. You could have called me when you were sleeping in your car those first few weeks. I know, but you were right. I needed to grow up, and I couldn't do that if someone was still rescuing me from my mistakes. Hannah's phone rang. The caller ID showed Portland General Hospital. Hannah Martinez. Hannah, this is Dr. Patricia Walsh, the Chief of Nursing. I have an interesting opportunity I'd like to discuss with you. Do you have time to come in this week? After scheduling the meeting, Hannah hung up to find Madison grinning at her. Big career move? Maybe. They're expanding their trauma unit and need someone to head up the training program. That's amazing. You've always been incredible at teaching other nurses. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle outside Hannah's floor-to-ceiling windows. Have you talked to Mom and Dad lately? Madison asked carefully. Once a month. Phone calls from the county jail aren't exactly quality family time. I visit them every week. Madison's voice was sad but determined. Dad's finally getting help for his gambling addiction. And Mom's teaching cooking classes to the other inmates. She says it gives her purpose. How long will they be in for? 3 to 5 years each, with possibility of parole in 18 months if they complete the rehabilitation programs. Hannah processed this information. Part of her felt satisfaction that her parents were finally facing consequences, but a larger part just felt tired. Do they ask about me? Every visit. They know they destroyed your trust, but they hope, someday. Someday what? Someday you might be able to forgive them. Not to forget, none of us expect that, but maybe forgive. Hannah thought about her grandmother's letter, still tucked in her wallet. Kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It's enabling. I'm not ready for that yet, she said honestly. I know, and they know too. Madison stood up, gathering her textbooks. I should go. I have a pharmacology exam tomorrow, and if I fail, I will lose my spot in the program. At the door, Madison turned back. Hannah, I know I don't have the right to ask for anything from you anymore. But would it be okay if I texted you sometimes? Not asking for help or money or anything. Just sister stuff? Hannah considered this. 6 months ago, the answer would have been an immediate no. But looking at Madison now, really working, really trying, really growing up, she felt something shift inside her chest. Sister stuff? Like if I pass my exam, or if I help save someone's life, or if I figure out how to make ramen taste less terrible on a student budget. Despite everything, Hannah smiled. Okay, sister stuff only. After Madison left, Hannah walked out onto her balcony, overlooking the city where she'd rebuilt her life from scratch. Her phone buzzed with the first sister stuff text. Just studied for 6 hours straight. My brain hurts, but I think I actually understand drug interactions now. Exploding head. Hannah typed back. That's what growth feels like. Proud of you. The response came immediately. Learning from the best. Love you, sis. Hannah looked out at the Portland skyline, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she'd been a woman living in her childhood bedroom, unknowingly funding her family's lies while they planned to erase her from her own home. Tonight, she was a property owner, a career professional, and slowly, very slowly, rebuilding relationships on her own terms. Her phone buzzed with a call from Marcus Williams. Hey, successful businesswoman, how does it feel to be a condo owner? Like I can finally breathe, Hannah admitted. Good, because I have news. Remember that nurse practitioner program you've been thinking about? The application deadline got extended. You could still apply for fall semester. Hannah looked around her new living room, her space, her choices, her future. Send me the application. It's time I started investing in my own dreams instead of funding other people's fantasies. As she hung up the phone, Hannah realized that for the first time in years, she wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter about the betrayal, wasn't consumed with revenge fantasies, wasn't waiting for apologies that might never come. She was simply moving forward. Her family had given her room to her sister, thinking they were taking something away from her. Instead, they'd given her something much more valuable. The motivation to build a life that was entirely her own. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Hannah Martinez was exactly where she belonged. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, These are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.